really happy to have you here today. Watch out for this video. We're going to look at positive production externalities. These ones I think are the ones that are a little bit tricky, not because they operate differently to what we're used to, but because the vocab just is a bit mind-boggling. And we're going to revise a little bit. We've already done positive production externalities like the graph, but we're going to just refresh that and then move on to the welfare loss. So here's a kind of quick summary. When we're dealing with production, remember the convention is to look at MPC, MEC, MSC, and I've got MPC means marginal private cost, MEC marginal external cost, MSC marginal social cost. Remember, MPC is the cost that a firm has faced just to produce that extra unit. So I just wanted to emphasize that means it's like the extra cost that they had to pay to make like the extra unit. MEC is the cost that the third parties face, the extra cost they face because of this extra unit made. MSC, the addition to total costs that society faces because of this extra unit that the firm makes. So everything's defined in terms of a cost. So guess what's going to happen when we talk about positive production externalities? When we want to communicate that something has been helpful, something has been good, and we're using cost vocab, we're in a pickle. So here I have a paragraph. Third parties are helped, meaning that the MEC is not really a cost, even though it kind of is. But we don't want to say that it's harmful. We don't want to say it's harming other people. That's what I mean. We want to say it's kind of like the opposite of a cost. Like it's actually been helpful. It's reduced some of the burden that these other third parties had. It's helped them. So how we deal with this is just put a negative sign, kind of suggesting it's kind of like the opposite of adding a cost on. You're like removing a cost, and that's good. Hence the positive effect on the third parties, like the helpful effect on the third parties. So you might want to write that bit down, but here I have this equation again, and if you've seen, there's been a little bit of an edit. Usually you've learned MSC equals MPC plus MEC, but because as we've discussed, the MEC is negative, then will not really be a plus, it will be a negative, minus the MEC. And if you do this, since you're minusing something, you will find that the MSC will be lower than the MPC for each quantity, right? For each Q. And this last bit was actually quite important, for each quantity. So to help you remember what that meant it was like a vertical shift, that the MSC should be lower because it faces a lower cost for each quantity than the MPC. We're going in like a quantity kind of axis. So for example, take a random quantity. Take Q random. And you can see that the social cost is here. Let's give it a 10, which is less than the private cost, which is 15. That just illustrates that when you deal with the positive production externality, think vertically and think that the MSC is lower than the MPC. Literally vertically lower. Long story short, the free market is going to be producing where the MPC equals the MPB. Remember, that's because people are selfish. And that's going to result in QFM, which is less than what would be the social optimum where MSC equals MSB at QSO. The word we want to use here is underproduction. QFM, this free market, has produced less than what is socially optimum. It's produced less by that quantity. Okay, now we get to the welfare loss. So I've kind of written some steps there that you can take down, but essentially we just really want to focus back onto this specific quantity that wasn't produced. So the units between QFM and QSO were not produced. But if they had been produced, what would have happened? Let's take a look. So if we had produced the units between QFM, we would have faced some social costs. We would have faced the social cost of that much for that unit and this much for this unit. We would have faced all of these social costs. But at the same time, we would have benefited too. Not everything is bad. And these units are actually more good than bad. So you can see that by neglecting to produce between QFM and QSO, we are neglecting to gain all these welfare that could have been possible. So that's what I've written there. Look at the units between QFM and QSO. Realize that the MSB is higher than the MSE. That means that these units could have had higher benefits to society than costs, and that would have increased welfare by this yellow area. Here I've got this in a table form. For those of you who like to look at this more numerically, I've got the units between the free market and the social optimum, and I've tracked their social costs, tracked their social benefits, put it in a table, and we can see, for example, that this sixth unit, because it had 6 costs of production, but it had 12 benefits, this sixth unit actually added 6 to welfare. Take a look at the 7th unit. Added 7 to costs and 11 to to benefits, meaning it added another 4 to welfare. So, I don't know, let's say total welfare was 100 before, now it would be 106. Now it's 110, it gets higher. Right, because you've been adding full welfare on. Take a look at the 8th one. Has a cost of 8 and a benefit of 10, which would add on 2, so you would get 112 total welfare. And that 9th unit just has the costs equaling the benefits, meaning that the welfare would be maximized. So therefore, by avoiding to make these units, these 6, 7, 8, 9 units, the society is actually worse off. It ends up with 100 welfare and not 112. And 112 is better. That's why, looking at this, the free market is only able to achieve a lower welfare than what would have been able to be achieved had the firm cared about somebody other than themselves. And here is a quick summary. Hope you found that useful. We've already taken a look at negative externalities in production. Think what is coming up. Something cool, something a bit different. Is a little bit more detail into welfare gained. Not just about positive, negative production consumption, just like in general, the logic and the way to do that. Hope to see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.